Our child hidden among the aisles holds a secret that can forever change the life of the man who never imagined he'd meet them. Those who see never forget. Those who know weep. The night in Portland dragged on with fine rain covering the streets, and the parking lot floodlights reflecting in dark puddles of water. Inside store 23 of Lewis Market, almost all the lights had already been turned off. It was the end of another exhausting shift. Employees silently cleaned the aisles, checked price tags and organized inventory. Among them was Robert Lewis, a 38-year-old man who, in the eyes of everyone there, was just another new hire in the stock department. No one knew that this man, with his discreet gaze and humble gestures, was actually the founder and CEO of the largest supermarket chain in the region. The cold warehouse of that unit bore no resemblance to the penthouse in Seattle's financial district where Robert usually worked. As he adjusted the straps of his navy blue uniform with the company logo that he himself had designed more than 15 years ago, the businessman observed every detail of the environment: the overly polished floor, the strategically positioned cameras, the shelves organized with military precision. Everything there functioned like a well-calibrated machine, but without soul. There were no spontaneous smiles or casual conversations, only the metallic squeaking of carts and the constant clicking of barcode scanners. "Lewis, finish organizing aisle 3 and you can go home," said Mark, the night supervisor, a 50-year-old man with deep, dark circles and graying hair who would never imagine he was giving orders to his own boss. "Yes, sir," Robert replied, lowering his head as he had done for a week since he began his secret mission. The decision to anonymously infiltrate the basic operation of the company had not been easy. It all started with a letter left on his secretary's desk, a letter with no return address, handwritten on ordinary paper. At first he thought about ignoring it, as he did with so many other pieces of correspondence that arrived at headquarters, but something about that simple envelope caught his attention. "Lewis Market has lost its heart, Mr. Robert. The company that your mother helped build with dignity is now just a money-making machine. The smiles are fake. The exhaustion is real." Those words haunted him for days. Who could have written that? How did they know about his mother, Margaret, who had passed away when the chain still had only 3 stores? The sleepless nights accumulated until Robert made his decision. He needed to see with his own eyes. He chose store 23 in Portland because it was far enough that no one would recognize him. He rented a simple apartment in a nearby neighborhood. He invented an average resume with basic retail experience. And so, Robert Lewis, the man who appeared in business magazines, transformed into just Lewis, the stockroom rookie who carried boxes and took scoldings without complaining. Finishing organizing aisle 3, Robert felt the weight of the week on his back. It wasn't just physical fatigue, something he wasn't accustomed to, but also the weight of his discoveries. He had noticed the time clock system that deducted minutes for being late but never paid overtime. He had seen employees eating lunch standing up because the break room was too small. He had perceived the fear in the eyes of those who whispered about health problems, afraid of losing their jobs if they missed work to see a doctor. "This isn't what I wanted," he murmured to himself, remembering the principles his mother had taught him when they started the small grocery store in rural Ohio. "Respect above profit, Bobby. People aren't numbers," Margaret used to say, while noting down credit in her worn notebook. While storing the last pack of toilet paper on the bottom shelf, he heard a subtle noise, different from the usual sounds of the store. It wasn't the industrial air conditioning or the humming freezers. It was something more delicate, almost imperceptible, a muffled sob. Robert frowned and followed the sound, walking slowly between the gondola shelves. The noise was coming from the personal care products aisle. With careful steps he approached and then saw her. Huddled between 2 stacks of disposable diapers was a little girl of approximately 7 years old, disheveled brown hair, simple clothes wet from the rain, and eyes. Large dark eyes that stared at him with a mixture of fear and hope. "Hi," said Robert, crouching down to her level. "Are you okay?" The girl didn't answer. She hugged more tightly the worn backpack she held against her chest. "You don't need to be afraid. I won't hurt you," he continued, keeping his distance so as not to frighten her. "My name is Robert. What's yours?" After a few seconds of hesitation, she whispered, "Amy." "Amy," he repeated, smiling. "Pretty name. What are you doing here alone? The store is about to close." "I'm waiting for my sister," she answered, her voice so low that he had to lean in to hear. She works here at the checkout. Robert made a quick mental inventory of the employees he had met during the week. There were 3 cashiers on the night shift: Joan, the grey-haired lady who always told stories about her grandchildren; Paula, the university student with thick glasses; and Lisa, the quiet young woman who always seemed to be somewhere else, even when efficiently attending to customers. "Is your sister Lisa?" he ventured. Amy nodded, looking away. "Don't tell her you saw me. She doesn't know I come here sometimes." The girl hesitated, then added, "I don't want to cause her trouble." At that moment, something in the child's posture, the way she tried to appear smaller, invisible, deeply touched Robert. He recognized in her the same loneliness he felt, even surrounded by people in his executive life. "Why do you come to the store, Amy?" "Because it's safe here," she answered, with devastating simplicity. "And because—" She stopped, seeming to assess whether she trusted him enough to continue. "Because," Robert gently encouraged. Amy opened her backpack and carefully removed a folded piece of paper with almost reverential care. She slowly unfolded it and showed it to Robert. It was a childish drawing made with colorful markers. It depicted a man with disproportionately large blue wings, a golden halo, and a gentle smile. "Because the angel lives here," she said, pointing to the drawing. "My sister says he protects us, that one day he helped our mum when she really needed it." Robert felt the air leave his lungs. That drawing, there was something familiar about it, something that awakened a distant memory, but one he couldn't precisely place. "Your mother, where is she now?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Amy's face closed. "Mom is resting in heaven. It's been a while." Before Robert could process that information or ask more questions, they heard footsteps approaching. Quickly, Amy folded the drawing and put it back in her backpack. "Please don't tell," she pleaded. Robert nodded, standing up. He pretended to be organizing shelves when Mark appeared in the aisle. "Still here, Lewis? I thought you'd already gone." "I'm finishing up, just one more minute," he replied. When the supervisor moved away, Robert looked to where Amy had been, but she had already disappeared. Like a small shadow, she had blended into the darkness of the nearly empty store. He remained there for a moment, with a strange feeling in his chest. That drawing had stirred something within him, and the mention of an angel who had helped the girl's mother. There was a connection there that he needed to discover. As he finished his shift and prepared to go out into the fine rain that continued to fall, Robert made a decision. It was no longer just about understanding what had happened to his company. Now, he needed to find out who Amy was, who her sister Lisa was, and why that angel drawing seemed so unsettlingly familiar. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from, and let's continue. The next morning, Robert arrived at the store earlier. He wanted to observe the complete operations from opening to closing, but mainly he wanted to find Lisa, Amy's sister. There was something about that angel drawing story that hadn't let him sleep. Throughout the night, a sense of familiarity had haunted him, as if he were looking at a puzzle whose pieces were all there but out of order. He positioned himself near the employee entrance, pretending to organize empty boxes while observing each face that passed. He recognized several of them. Tony, the grey-haired security guard who always arrived 40 minutes before his shift. Mrs. Baker from the bakery who brought homemade bread for her colleagues on Tuesdays. Jake, the butcher's assistant, with his eternal Cubs cap. They all seemed automatic, as if they were just fulfilling an obligation. No one seemed truly happy to be there. That's when she appeared. Lisa walked hurriedly, hair tied in an improvised bun, dark circles under her eyes contrasting with her fair skin. She wore the company uniform impeccably clean, despite being visibly worn. She carried a tattered bag and a small umbrella that seemed to have faced too many storms. There was something in her movements that conveyed urgency and tiredness, but also a quiet dignity. When she passed by him, Robert almost called out. He restrained himself at the last second. He needed to be cautious. He couldn't simply approach the young woman and ask about her sister hiding in the store, much less about a mysterious drawing. He decided to observe her first, understand her routine, and then find an appropriate moment. Throughout the day, he kept a watchful eye from a distance. He saw how Lisa worked at the checkout with mechanical efficiency, always polite with customers, but never really smiling. He noticed how she discreetly checked the clock every half hour, as if counting the minutes until the end of her shift. During the lunch break, while other employees chatted animatedly, she sat alone in a corner of the break room, quickly eating a sandwich brought from home while reading something in a worn notebook. In the late afternoon, Robert got a closer view when he was assigned to restock merchandise near the checkout where she worked. It was then that he noticed a detail that had escaped him. Hanging from the strap of her bag was a small keychain in the shape of an angel, a blue angel. The coincidence made his heart race. He was increasingly convinced that there was an important connection there, something his memory was desperately trying to recover. That night, when all the customers had already gone and only the night shift employees remained, Robert went back to look for Amy among the aisles. He didn't find her. Perhaps she didn't come every day, he thought. Back at the small rented apartment, Robert opened the suitcase where he kept his personal belongings. Among important documents and some casual clothes was an old wooden box that he carried wherever he went. Inside it, he kept small mementos, fragments of significant moments in his life. The first check from the grocery store his mother opened, the key to the first Lewis Market store, a faded photo from his graduation where Margaret smiled proudly. And then, almost at the bottom of the box, he found a yellowed envelope. Inside it, carefully preserved, was a drawing made with colorful markers, a man with disproportionately large blue wings, a golden halo, and a gentle smile. "My God," he whispered, feeling a shiver run down his spine. The memory returned like a wave. It was a rainy night on a road in Ohio. Robert, freshly graduated with a business degree, was returning home after a frustrating job interview. He saw a car flipped over on the side of the road. Without thinking twice, he stopped to help. Inside the vehicle, he found an injured woman and a girl of approximately 5 years old, terrified but unharmed. He managed to get them both out of the car before it caught fire. He called an ambulance and stayed with them until help arrived. During those long hours of waiting, he talked with the girl to keep her calm while monitoring the weak breathing of her mother. The little one was scared but showed impressive courage for her age. When the ambulance finally arrived, he accompanied them to the nearest hospital. The woman needed to be hospitalized, but she would survive. Days later, when he went back to visit them, the girl gave him a drawing, himself with angel wings. "You're our highway angel," she said, with the profound simplicity of children. The woman, still convalescing, said something that would be forever etched in his memory. "If someday I need another miracle, I know the blue angel will appear again." Robert kept that drawing as a talisman. It was on that very day that he decided to use the money he had saved to open his first store, no longer to get rich, but to create a business that could help people like that family. The woman's name was Caroline, and the girl's name was Lisa. "It's her," he murmured to himself, stunned by the discovery. Lisa is that same girl, and Amy must be the sister who was born later. But if Caroline was the girl's mother, and she now rested in heaven, as Amy had said, that meant she had passed away. The idea deeply saddened him. What had happened to that family after the accident? How had the girls come to Portland? And most importantly, how had Lisa ended up working precisely in one of his stores without knowing that the owner was the angel she had drawn so many years ago? The next day, Robert arrived at the store with the determination of someone who had finally found a greater purpose for his secret mission. It was no longer just about understanding what had happened to the heart of his company. Now it was about finding a way to help those girls who, for some mysterious reason, fate had placed in his path again. During his shift, he stayed close to the checkout where Lisa worked, always attentive to details. He observed how she seemed tired, how her hands trembled slightly at the end of the day, how her gaze frequently got lost in emptiness when there were no customers. He also saw how, in moments of greater movement, she demonstrated an almost fierce determination, serving quickly, never making mistakes. During the break, Robert approached discreetly. He sat a few chairs away, pretending to be absorbed in his own lunch. That's when he overheard a conversation between two supervisors who were nearby. "Lisa asked to work overtime again," one of them commented. "That's the third time this week," the other replied. "She's going to end up getting sick this way. You know how it is, and she takes care of her little sister alone. Seems the girl has health problems, needs expensive medicine." That information hit Robert like a punch. Amy was sick. Was that why Lisa seemed so exhausted, working to the limit of her strength? That same night, doing the final round through the warehouse, Robert spotted little Amy again. This time she was in the school supplies aisle, silently leafing through a sketchbook displayed on the shelf. Her face lit up as she turned the pages, as if imagining all the possibilities contained in those blank sheets. "Hi, Amy," he called softly, so as not to startle her. The girl looked up, recognizing him. She didn't run away this time. "Hi, stockroom guy," she replied, quickly closing the sketchbook and putting it back on the shelf. "Do you like to draw?" Robert asked, approaching slowly. Amy nodded. "I do. Mum used to say I draw as well as Lisa did when she was little." Robert smiled. "Can I see one of your drawings?" She hesitated for a moment, then opened her backpack and took out a folded sheet. It was another drawing of the Blue Angel, but now he was in front of a building that looked very much like the Lewis Market store. "It's the Angel," she explained. "Lisa said he lives in the big stores watching over everyone. That's why I come here sometimes and to be near him." Robert felt a lump in his throat. "Does your sister talk about this angel a lot?" "Only when I'm sad," Amy replied. "When I miss Mom, or when she has to work late and I'm alone. Then she tells the story of the highway angel who saved Mom once." Robert's heart tightened. That story, which for him had been just a moment of random kindness, was a legend for these girls, a comfort, a hope. He wanted to tell the truth right there, to reveal who he was, but something stopped him. He needed to better understand the situation first. He needed to find a way to help them that wouldn't seem like charity or pity. "Amy," he said, crouching down to her level, "you shouldn't be here alone so late. It's dangerous. Your sister must be worried." "She doesn't know I come," the girl repeated. "I think she'd be mad, but I'm careful. I stay just a little while and then I go to Mrs. Wilson's house, our neighbor who watches me when Lisa works at night." Robert thought quickly. "Look, I'll make a deal with you. If you promise not to come to the store alone at night anymore, I promise to give you a sketchbook just like the one you were looking at. What do you think?" The girl's eyes lit up, but soon after her face took on a serious, almost adult expression. "I can't accept presents from strangers," she said. "Lisa always says that." "Your sister is right," Robert agreed. "So how about this? It won't be a present from me. It will be a present from the angel. I'll leave it at the front desk tomorrow with your name, and you can pick it up when you come to meet your sister. What do you think?" Amy considered the proposal for a moment, then smiled, the first genuine smile Robert had seen in that store in a long time. "Okay," she agreed, "but how will the angel know my full name?" "Angels know these things," Robert replied with a wink. When Amy walked away, blending into the shadows of the almost empty store, Robert remained motionless, feeling the weight of that responsibility. He was no longer just the CEO in disguise, investigating problems in his company. Now he was once again the highway angel, with the mission of protecting those two sisters whom life had placed in his path again. The next morning, before the start of his shift, Robert stopped at a stationery store in downtown Portland. He chose a hardcover sketchbook, a set of professional colored pencils, and a set of colorful markers. He hesitated in front of the shelf of children's backpacks, thinking about replacing that worn one that Amy carried, but he restrained himself. He didn't want to arouse suspicion with gifts that were too expensive. He needed to be discreet, gradual. As he passed through checkout, the clerk commented on the quality of the materials. "Are they for a special artist?" she asked, smiling. "Yes," Robert replied, without going into details. "A very special artist." Arriving at store 23, he headed to the front desk where Tony, the security guard, was distractedly reading a crossword puzzle magazine. "Good morning, Tony," he greeted. "I need a favor." The man looked up, surprised by the approach. Normally, stockroom employees barely spoke to the security team. "What's up, kid?" Robert placed the package on the counter. He had wrapped everything in blue paper and tied it with a gold ribbon. A small card simply said, "For Amy, from your friend Angel. I need you to deliver this to a little girl named Amy. She comes to pick up her sister Lisa, who works at the checkout. Can you do that?" Tony examined the package with curiosity. "You know the girls?" "More or less," Robert replied cautiously. "I noticed the little one likes to draw." The security guard smiled, revealing expression lines that softened his severe face. "I know those two well. Good girls. Lisa is as hard-working as they come, and little Amy, a sweet child despite everything they've been through." "What have they been through?" Robert asked, trying not to seem too eager for information. Tony looked around, as if checking that no one was listening, and lowered his voice. Their mother passed to the other side about 3 years ago. Bad disease, you know. Fast and merciless. The father, well, I never met him. From what they say, he abandoned the family when the youngest was still a baby. Lisa had just turned 18 when she became responsible for her sister, dropped out of college in her first semester to work full-time. The story confirmed Robert's suspicions. Fate had been cruel to Caroline and her daughters. After surviving the accident on the highway, years later, she had succumbed to a disease, leaving Lisa alone to raise her younger sister. "I'll deliver your gift to the little one," Tony assured, putting the package in his drawer. "She usually comes to meet her sister on Fridays when Lisa gets off earlier." "Thank you," said Robert, "and please, don't mention that it was me who left it." The security guard nodded, understanding. "Got it. It's a secret." During the following days, Robert intensified his observation. He discovered that Lisa worked alternating shifts, sometimes during the day, other times until the store closed. Whenever possible, she requested Sundays off, probably to spend time with her sister. She never ate in the store cafeteria, always bringing lunch from home. She saved every penny. On an afternoon of intense customer traffic, Robert was assigned to help with bagging groceries. He managed to stay at Lisa's checkout for almost 2 hours. He observed how she was polite with customers, but maintained an emotional distance, as if she had built an invisible wall between herself and the world. When a customer dropped coins on the floor, she quickly bent down to help pick them up. That's when Robert noticed something that disturbed him. The soles of her shoes were completely worn out, patched with adhesive tape on the inside. That image wouldn't leave his head. Lisa had been working at his company for at least 2 years, according to what he had found in the records, but she didn't earn enough to buy a new pair of shoes. That deeply troubled him. What kind of company had he built after all? On Friday, Robert arrived earlier and went straight to the front desk. Tony greeted him with a conspiratorial smile. "The little artist loved the gift," he reported, excited. "She was so emotional she almost cried right there. Said she had never seen such beautiful colored pencils." Lisa was intrigued, of course. She asked who had left it, but I respected our agreement. Robert felt a wave of warmth in his chest. At least that small gesture had brought some joy to the girl. "There's something else," continued Tony, taking a folded paper from the drawer. "She left this for the friend angel." It was a drawing. In it, the blue angel appeared smiling, with a sketchbook in his hands. Next to him, a little brown-haired girl held colored pencils. At the top of the page, in large, irregular letters, was written, "Thank you for not leaving me alone." The phrase hit Robert like a punch to the stomach. That child felt alone, abandoned, and a simple gift had meant so much. How many other Amys were out there, suffering silently while he worried about spreadsheets and profit targets in his luxurious office? In the following days, Robert continued his strategy of small anonymous gifts. A new raincoat appeared in Lisa's locker in the changing room. A pair of thermal socks was left with her name. Chocolates, fruits, and nutritious snacks began to mysteriously appear in Amy's backpack whenever she visited the store. With each gift, a small blue card with the signature, "Your angel hasn't forgotten you." Lisa's reaction was revealing. At first, she was suspicious. She even returned the raincoat, leaving it in the lost and found with a note, "I don't accept charity." But when a new pair of shoes appeared in her locker, exactly her size and discreet enough not to draw attention, Robert noticed that she had finally given in. The next day she was wearing them. Amy, on the other hand, responded with increasingly elaborate drawings. The Blue Angel now appeared in various scenarios, helping people, carrying food baskets, reading stories to children. It was as if, through her drawings, she was creating a complete mythology around that protective figure. On a rainy afternoon, while organizing boxes in the warehouse, Robert surprised Lisa writing something in a worn notebook. She was sitting in an isolated corner, taking advantage of her 15-minute break. When she noticed his presence, she quickly closed the notebook. "Sorry," he said, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "It's okay," she replied, putting the notebook in her bag. "I was just leaving." But before she could get up, Robert noticed a sheet that had fallen to the floor. He picked it up, and before returning it, saw that it was a kind of letter. Dear Angel, the text began, I don't know who you are or why you decided to help us. Maybe you're just someone with a good heart. Or maybe you really are the angel who saved my mother on that highway years ago. Either way, I want you to know that the rest was folded. Robert quickly returned the paper, feeling he had violated something intimate. Thank you, murmured Lisa, carefully storing the sheet. Do you believe in angels? Robert asked, trying to start a conversation. Lisa hesitated, as if assessing whether it was worth answering such a personal question. I believe in people who appear at the right time, she finally said, like you just now returning something important to me. There was a wisdom in her eyes that went far beyond her 21 years, a maturity forged in adversity, in the weight of responsibilities assumed too early. You know, she continued, surprising Robert by prolonging the conversation. When I was about 5 years old, I was in an accident with my mother. The car flipped over on a deserted road during a storm. I thought we were going to die there. Then a man appeared. He got us out of the car, took care of my mother until the ambulance arrived, and then even visited us in the hospital. He seems to have been very kind, commented Robert, feeling his heart race. It was more than that, Lisa replied, with a distant look. Back then I drew him as an angel with blue wings and everything, childish of course, but that drawing meant a lot to my mother. She kept it until... Her voice faltered. Until the end. Robert wanted to say something, anything, but words seemed inadequate in the face of that story that he knew so well, but from a completely different perspective. Sometimes, continued Lisa, I tell this story to my sister when she's sad. I tell her the blue angel still watches over us. It's silly, I know, but it helps her sleep better. I don't think it's silly, Robert replied. We all need to believe in something greater than ourselves. Lisa looked at him, as if really seeing him for the first time. You're different from the other new employees. You talk like someone who has lived a lot. Robert smiled, trying to hide his nervousness. I just observe a lot. Lisa's radio communicator beeped, calling her back to the checkout. She stood up, adjusting her uniform. It was good talking to you, Robert. That's your name, right? Yes. Robert Lewis, she nodded. Like the owner of the chain. Funny coincidence. And she left, leaving Robert standing there with the feeling that he was walking on thin ice. How much longer could he maintain his disguise? And more importantly, what would he do when he finally revealed the truth? The days went by and the small gifts continued. One day, a basket with basic grocery items appeared at the door of the apartment where Lisa lived with Amy. Robert had discovered the address through employee records. Another day, an envelope with tickets to the city's amusement park was left in the locker room, always with the same blue card, always with the same signature. Rumors began to spread throughout the store. Employees commented about the mysterious angel who seemed to know everyone's needs, because it wasn't just Lisa and Amy who received gifts. Other employees also began to find small surprises: medicine for those who were sick, school supplies for the children of those who were studying, extra transportation vouchers for those who lived far away. Robert had expanded his mission. Each time he heard a conversation, each time he noticed an unmet need, he acted. Discreetly, without fanfare, trying to provide what the company itself, his company, had failed to provide. On a particularly busy night, when the store was packed because of a special promotion, Robert observed Lisa at the checkout. She seemed paler than normal, with deep, dark circles and slower movements. At one point, he saw her lean on the counter, taking a deep breath as if trying to catch her breath. Concerned, he approached with the excuse of bringing plastic bags to the checkout. Are you okay? He asked in a low voice. I am, she replied without conviction, just a little tired. It seems more than that. Maybe you should ask to go home early. Lisa shook her head. I can't. I need the full day. Amy has a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Before Robert could insist, she turned to serve the next customer, ending the conversation. He continued to observe her for the next hour, noting how each movement seemed to require an immense effort. That's when it happened. In the middle of serving a customer, Lisa simply collapsed. Her knees gave way and she fell backward, being partially supported by a colleague who was at the adjacent checkout. An immediate buzz took over the store. Frightened customers, employees running to help. Robert was the first to reach her. Without thinking about the consequences, he took control of the situation. Step back, please. Give her space to breathe. Robert's voice came out firm, authoritative, completely different from the submissive tone he had been using for weeks as a stockroom employee. Some colleagues looked at him in surprise, but instinctively obeyed. He knelt beside Lisa, checking her vital signs as he had learned in a first aid course that the company offered to executives. Her breathing was weak, but regular. Her skin, cold and damp. Someone call an ambulance, he ordered, while loosening the collar of her uniform. Mark, the supervisor, approached with his cell phone already in hand. I'm calling now. What happened to her? Looks like exhaustion, Robert replied. Extreme fatigue. How long has she been working overtime? Weeks, replied the supervisor with a twinge of guilt. She always volunteers. We need people, and she needs the money, so... Robert felt a wave of anger growing inside him. Was this the system he had created, exploiting employees' needs until they collapsed? Before he could respond, Lisa began to regain consciousness. What happened? She murmured, trying to sit up. You fainted, Robert explained gently. Stay lying down. The ambulance is on its way. Her eyes widened in panic. No ambulance. I can't afford it. I'm fine. I just need a minute. Lisa, you need to be examined by a doctor. I can't, she insisted, her voice trembling. Amy, who will pick up Amy? The concern for her sister, even in that state, deeply moved Robert. He made a quick decision. I'll pick up your sister, he said firmly. Where is she now? Lisa hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with entrusting this information to a colleague she barely knew. But her debilitated state didn't give her many options. At Mrs. Wilson's house, Acacia Street 87, apartment 3. The spare key is... Don't worry about that now, Robert interrupted. Let's take care of you first, then I'll get Amy. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics examined Lisa and confirmed severe exhaustion, low blood pressure, signs of dehydration, and possible anemia. They recommended hospitalization for more detailed exams. I can't go to the hospital, she protested weakly. Who will take care of my sister? Who will pay the bills? That's when Robert made a decision that would change everything. He stepped away a bit, took his personal cell phone from his pocket, not the simple device he used as an employee, but his executive smartphone, and made a call. Dr. Mitchell, this is Robert Lewis. I need an urgent favor. I have an employee who needs immediate medical care. Yes, I'll cover all costs. I want the best possible care. Providence Hospital in my name. When he returned to the stretcher where Lisa was being prepared for transport, she was staring at him with an expression of absolute confusion. Who are you really? She asked. Robert took a deep breath. This wasn't how he had planned to reveal his identity, but the circumstances left him no choice. My name is Robert Lewis. I'm the founder and CEO of Lewis Market. Lisa's eyes widened in shock. There was a moment of absolute silence around them, as if everyone present had simultaneously stopped breathing. Then a growing buzz took over the store. But why? She stammered. Why are you working as... It's a long story, he interrupted. I promise to explain everything after you're better. Now I need you to trust me. I'll take care of everything. The hospital, your sister, your job. Don't worry about anything except recovering. Before she could protest again, the paramedics began to move her to the ambulance. Robert accompanied them to the door and then turned to face the stunned employees watching him. Among them was Mark, the supervisor, with an expression that mixed surprise and terror. Mr. Lewis, I didn't know... We'll talk later. Robert cut him off, naturally reassuming his CEO posture. Now, I need you to take control here. Explain to the customers that we had a medical emergency and offer a 15% discount to compensate for the inconvenience. I'm going to pick up Lisa's sister, and then I'll head to the hospital. Mark just nodded, unable to formulate a coherent response. In a matter of minutes, the man everyone knew as the quiet stockroom employee had transformed into a figure of unquestionable authority. Robert quickly headed to the locker room, changed from his uniform into his regular clothes, and left for the address Lisa had provided. On the way, he called his personal assistant, briefly explaining the situation and asking her to arrange everything necessary at the hospital. The building where Mrs. Wilson lived was a simple housing complex with peeling paint and poor lighting. Robert climbed the stairs to the third floor and knocked on the door of apartment 3. A grey-haired lady with a severe expression answered, looking at him with suspicion. "Yes? Good evening. My name is Robert Lewis. I come on behalf of Lisa. She had a health issue at work and needed to go to the hospital." The woman's expression immediately changed to concern. "My God, is she okay? I always said that girl works too hard. Come in, come in." The apartment was small but impeccably clean. Sitting at a table, focused on a coloring book, was Amy. Hearing the conversation, she looked up. She recognized Robert immediately. "Stockroom guy," she exclaimed with a smile that soon transformed into concern. "Where's Lisa?" Robert approached, crouching down to her level. "Your sister isn't feeling very well, Amy. She needed to go to the doctor to rest a bit. She asked me to come get you." Amy studied him with suspicious eyes, very similar to her sister's. "Are you Lisa's friend?" "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "I'm her friend, and I'm also a friend of the Blue Angel." The girl's eyes widened. "You know the angel?" "I do," confirmed Robert with a gentle smile. "In fact, it was he who asked me to take care of you too." Amy reflected for a moment, then nodded, as if that made perfect sense in her childish logic. "Okay, but I need to take my sketchbook and my backpack with clothes." "Of course. Let's get everything you need." Mrs. Wilson, who was observing the scene with interest, intervened. "Are you sure you can stay with the girl? She can sleep here tonight, as she's done other times." "I appreciate the offer, but I think it's better if I take her with me," replied Robert. "Lisa will want to see her sister as soon as she's feeling better, and I think Amy will also want to be near her." The lady nodded, still a bit uncertain. "Are you a relative of theirs?" "No," replied Robert thoughtfully, "but we are connected in a special way." While Amy gathered her belongings, helped by Mrs. Wilson, Robert took the opportunity to observe the small apartment. Everything there spoke of struggle and dignity. The simple but well-maintained furniture, the curtains made of tastefully combined scraps, the few ornaments strategically positioned to give life to the modest environment. On a shelf improvised with wooden crates, there were some worn books and, in a place of prominence, a framed photograph. Robert approached to see better. In the photo, a young and beautiful woman smiled while hugging two girls, a teenager and a small child. He recognized them immediately, Caroline, Lisa, and Amy, probably shortly before the mother fell ill. The resemblance between mother and daughters was striking, especially in the eyes, large, expressive, with a peculiar mixture of strength and vulnerability. "This is my mom," said Amy's voice behind him. She had approached silently, carrying her backpack and the sketchbook. "She was beautiful, wasn't she?" "Very beautiful," agreed Robert, his voice choked with emotion. "And you two look a lot like her." "Lisa looks more like her. I take after my dad a little too." Amy said this without particular emotion, like someone repeating something they heard from others. "Do you have contact with your father?" asked Robert cautiously. Amy shook her head. "He left when I was a baby. Lisa says he wasn't ready to be a father. She says some people aren't born to take care of others." The wisdom contained in that simple explanation deeply affected Robert. It was exactly what had happened with his company. He was no longer taking care of it, or the people who composed it. "I'm ready," announced Amy, interrupting his thoughts. They said goodbye to Mrs. Wilson, who made Robert promise to call with news about Lisa, and headed to the car. Amy was impressed with the luxury vehicle Robert had rented, so different from the bus she usually took with her sister. "Are you rich?" she asked, with the typical honesty of children. Robert smiled. "I have enough." "Then why do you work carrying boxes?" "Sometimes, Amy. We need to do different things to better understand the world around us." The girl nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "Like when I hide in the store to be closer to the angel." "Exactly," agreed Robert, amazed at her perception. During the journey to the hospital, Amy told stories about school, about her drawings, about how she sometimes missed her mother. She also talked about Lisa, about how she worked a lot and always seemed tired but never failed to read to her before bed. "She's my best friend," concluded the girl, "but she cries hidden in the bathroom sometimes. I think she thinks I don't know." That revelation tightened Robert's heart. He imagined the weight that Lisa carried, maintaining the household, raising a child, dealing with the absence of her mother, all this with just over 20 years of age. At the hospital, they were immediately received. Robert's assistant had already prepared everything, and a doctor was waiting for them at the reception. Lisa was stabilized, but would need to spend the night under observation. Severe anemia, chronic stress, beginning of a stomach ulcer. Her body was giving all possible warning signs. "Can we see her?" asked Robert. "Yes, but she's sedated. She'll probably sleep until tomorrow," explained the doctor. "Is the girl a relative?" "I'm her sister," replied Amy before Robert could speak. The doctor smiled. "Of course. You can go in, but don't stay too long. She needs to rest." In the private room, a courtesy that Robert had demanded, Lisa slept serenely. The paleness continued, but her breathing was normal. Amy approached cautiously as if afraid to wake her. "Will she be okay?" she asked in a whisper. "Yes, she will," assured Robert. "She just needs to rest a lot." Amy took her sister's hand and held it between her own. "I'll take care of you now, okay? Like you always take care of me." That simple gesture, that momentary reversal of roles, made Robert need to turn away to hide the tears that unexpectedly appeared. When he composed himself, he saw that Amy had placed something on the bedside table. A new drawing, hastily made, representing Lisa with angel wings. "Now she has wings too," explained the girl. "To become stronger." They left the room after a few minutes. Robert arranged a comfortable armchair for Amy in her sister's room, with the promise that she could spend the night there. While the girl settled in, he spoke with the doctors about the necessary treatment and ensured that all costs would be covered. Later, when Amy finally fell asleep, curled up in the armchair, Robert allowed himself a moment of reflection in the silent hospital corridor. In a few hours, his life had completely changed. His disguise had fallen, and now he needed to face the consequences of his discoveries. He thought about all the employees at Store 23, their tired faces, their difficult lives that he had ignored for so long from his luxurious office. He thought about how his company had become exactly the kind of place his mother would despise, efficient and profitable but devoid of humanity. And he thought mainly of Lisa and Amy, of the blue angel drawing that had connected their lives in such an improbable way, of the responsibility he now felt for them. His cell phone vibrated, interrupting his thoughts. It was his assistant informing him that the press had already discovered his secret operation and that the main media outlets were trying to contact him. Apparently, a customer had recognized the owner of Lewis Market during the incident at the store and posted on social media. Robert turned off the phone without responding. The press could wait. The explanations for the board of directors, for the shareholders, for the entire company, all of that could wait. At that moment, his priority was to take care of two sisters whom fate had placed in his path for the second time. He returned to the room and sat in a chair in the corner watching the two of them sleep. One, exhausted from carrying the world on shoulders, still so young. The other, innocent and wise at the same time, holding on to the hope represented by an angel drawn on paper. "I won't abandon you again," he promised in a low voice to himself. "This time, the angel will stay close by." If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from and let's continue. Morning arrived with the pale sunlight filtered through the hospital curtains. Robert woke up with a sore neck after spending the night in the uncomfortable chair. Amy was still sleeping deeply in the armchair, curled up like a small cat, her disheveled hair partially covering her face. But Lisa was already awake, sitting up in bed, looking directly at him with an expression that mixed confusion and distrust. "Good morning," he said, straightening up in the chair. "Why are you here?" she asked, without beating around the bush. Her voice was low so as not to wake her sister, but the tone was firm. Robert stood up, cautiously approaching the bed. "I promised I would take care of you two." "We didn't ask for that," Lisa retorted. "We didn't ask for anything, and especially not from you." There was a hardness in her words that contrasted with her fragile appearance, connected to IVs and monitors. Robert understood that the battle would be difficult. "I know you must be confused." "Confused?" she interrupted with a bitter laugh. "Confused is putting it mildly. I discover that the quiet guy from the stockroom, who talked with me during breaks, who seemed normal, is actually the billionaire owner of the company. That's not confusion, Mr. Lewis, it's feeling deceived." Robert took a deep breath. He knew he deserved that reaction. "You're right. I wasn't honest about who I was, but everything we talked about, every word we exchanged, was genuine. Lisa looked away, fixing her gaze on the window. Why did you do it? Was it some kind of joke? Let's see how the poor live for a few weeks. A private reality show? The bitterness in her voice was palpable, and each word hit Robert like a small arrow. He pulled up a chair and sat next to the bed, maintaining a respectful distance. A few weeks ago, I received an anonymous letter at company headquarters. Someone wrote that Lewis Market had lost its soul, that it had become just a money-making machine. That hit me deeply because it's true, Lisa completed, turning to look at him again. Robert nodded. Yes, it's true. When I started, with the small grocery store that my mother helped build, we had different values. People were people, not numbers on spreadsheets. Employees had names, stories, families. But with growth, with market pressures, with competition, I lost sight of that. And you thought working a few weeks carrying boxes would fix everything. No, he admitted. Initially, I just wanted to understand what was happening, to see with my own eyes without filters. Then, he hesitated, looking at Amy, who continued sleeping. Then I found your sister hidden among the aisles, and I saw the angel drawing. Lisa's expression subtly changed. The drawing? Robert nodded. Amy showed me a drawing of a blue angel. She said you told her about an angel who saved your mother once. So what? Asked Lisa, but her tone was no longer so hostile. There was a hesitation, as if she was beginning to perceive where that conversation was going. Lisa, I am that man. The man who stopped on the highway 16 years ago during a storm and helped you and your mother after the car flipped over. The silence that followed was absolute. Lisa stared at him with wide eyes, as if trying to process that impossible revelation. That's crazy, she finally stammered. How could it be you? How could it be the same man? I remember every detail of that night, Robert replied softly. The red car flipped over on the curve, the rain that wouldn't stop. You, a frightened but incredibly brave little girl, holding your mother's hand while we waited for the ambulance. Later, at the hospital, you gave me a drawing of an angel with disproportionately large blue wings. Lisa brought her hand to her mouth, her eyes welling up. It can't be. I still have that drawing, continued Robert. I kept it all these years. It was a talisman for me, a reminder of what really matters in life. A tear escaped, running down Lisa's pale face. Mom always said that night changed our lives, that her highway angel saved us not just from the accident, but from hopelessness. Robert felt his own emotion tightening his throat. And you changed mine too. After that night, I decided to use the money I had saved to open my first real store, no longer out of ambition, but to create something meaningful, something that could help people. And now you have an empire, concluded Lisa, with a touch of irony through her tears. An empire that lost its original purpose, agreed Robert, until I found you and Amy again. At that moment, a small movement in the armchair caught the attention of both. Amy had woken up and was watching them with curious eyes. Lisa, are you better already? She asked, quickly getting up and running to hug her sister. I'm getting better, little one, replied Lisa, hugging her tightly. The doctor said I can go home soon. Amy pulled back a bit, looking from Lisa to Robert and back to her sister. Were you talking about the angel? The adults exchanged a look. Yes, replied Lisa softly. We were talking about the highway angel, Amy smiled. I knew it. I knew he would come back to help us again. She turned to Robert. It was you who left the gifts, wasn't it? The sketchbook, the pencils, everything. Robert nodded, impressed with the child's perception. How did you figure it out? By the smell, she replied with simplicity. Your gifts had the same smell as you. Lisa looked at her sister, then at Robert, connecting the dots. So it was you, all those anonymous gifts, the things that mysteriously appeared. I wanted to help, he explained, but I knew you would refuse if you knew who I was. Of course I would refuse, confirmed Lisa, recovering part of her defensive posture. We don't need charity. It's not charity, Lisa. It's what? She challenged. Pity? Guilt? Some kind of personal redemption project? Amy looked from one to the other, confused by the sudden tension. Robert realized he needed to choose his next words carefully. It's recognition, he finally said. Recognition that I failed. as a businessman, as a human being. I built a company that exhausts people like you, that forces them to work until they faint, that doesn't allow them to have time for their families, for their dreams." Those words seemed to disarm Lisa's resistance a bit. "I'm not asking you to accept my help for yourself," he continued, "but perhaps you could accept it for Amy and for all the other employees who are going through the same difficulties." Before Lisa could answer, they were interrupted by a nurse entering to check vital signs and change the IV. Taking advantage of the moment, Amy pulled Robert by the hand into the hallway. "She'll accept," whispered the girl once they were alone. "She just needs time. Lisa always takes a while to trust people." Robert smiled, amazed at the wisdom of this child. "You seem to know your sister very well." "That's because it's just the two of us against the world," replied Amy, with a seriousness that didn't match her age, "since Mom went away." "I'm sorry about your mother," said Robert sincerely. "She seemed to be an amazing woman." "She was," agreed Amy. "She always said that one day the highway angel would return, and you came back." She studied him with curious eyes. "But you don't have real wings, do you?" Robert chuckled softly. "No, I don't have real wings." "That's okay," the girl consoled. "You don't need wings to be an angel. Mom used to say that angels are people who appear when we need them most, even without having any obligation." That simple and profound definition hit Robert squarely. Wasn't that what his own mother had taught? That true wealth was in being able to help when no one else could? When they returned to the room, the nurse had already left. Lisa was sitting on the bed, looking thoughtful. "The doctor just stopped by," she informed them. "He said I can be discharged tomorrow if the tests continue to look good." "That's great," replied Robert. "I've already arranged for a car to take you home when everything is set." Lisa took a deep breath. "Before that, we need to talk. Amy, can you go to the cafeteria with Nurse Claire? She said there's a hot chocolate waiting for you." The girl looked from Lisa to Robert, seeming to assess the situation. "Okay, but don't fight, all right?" When they were alone, Lisa adjusted herself in the bed, facing Robert with a determined expression. "I want to make some things clear," she began. "First, I thank you for all the help. For the hospital, for taking care of Amy, for everything. I can recognize when someone does something good, regardless of the motives." "Thank you," replied Robert cautiously. "Second," continued Lisa, "I don't know what you're planning to do from now on, but I don't want special treatment. If I'm going to continue working at Lewis Market, I want to be treated like any other employee." "I understand, but—" "Third," she interrupted, determined to finish, "I don't want Amy to create unrealistic expectations. You may be the highway angel for her now, but what about later? When you get tired of this project, when you return to your normal life, how do I explain to a 7-year-old child that her angel disappeared again?" That concern deeply affected Robert. She was right. What guarantee could he give that he wouldn't disappear again from their lives? "Lisa," he began, choosing his words carefully, "I understand your concerns, and they are completely valid. But I want you to know that I'm not planning to return to my normal life, as you say, because my normal life ended the moment I received that letter, the moment I saw your sister hidden among the aisles, the moment I recognized that drawing." He paused, organizing his thoughts. "What I discovered in the last few weeks changed everything. Not just about you and Amy, but about my company, about my purpose in life. When I founded Lewis Market, inspired by that night on the highway, I had clear values. But over the years, I lost my way. Now I have the chance to correct this." "How?" asked Lisa, still skeptical but visibly interested. "I'm planning a complete overhaul of the company, better salaries, real benefits, schedules that allow people to have a life beyond work, daycares in the larger stores for employees with young children, continuing education programs for those who want to study, real profit sharing, not just for executives, but for everyone." Lisa stared at him in silence for a few seconds. "That sounds ambitious." "It's the least I can do," replied Robert. "And as for you and Amy, I'm not asking you to trust me immediately. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that this time the angel won't disappear." A long silence established itself between them. Finally, Lisa extended her hand. "Let's start over then. Hello, I'm Lisa Almeida, cashier at Store 23 and business administration student who had to drop out of college due to lack of resources." Robert smiled, accepting the gesture. Nice to meet you, Lisa. I'm Robert Lewis, founder of Lewis Market and apparently a wingless angel who is still learning to fly. That moment of truce was interrupted by Amy, who returned to the room carrying a cup of hot chocolate and a new drawing. "Look what I made," she announced, extending the paper. "It's the three of us." In the drawing, three figures holding hands smiled under a blue sky. A small girl, a young woman, and a man with a discreet pair of wings on his back. Above them, among clouds, a fourth figure, a woman with long hair, watched them with a smile. "It's Mom," explained Amy, pointing to the figure among the clouds. "She's happy because we're not alone anymore." Lisa and Robert exchanged an emotional look. It was as if that childish drawing represented a possibility, a future where the past wasn't forgotten, but integrated into a new story. In the days that followed, Lisa was discharged and returned home with Amy. Robert respected her space, remaining available but not invasive. He arranged for her to have paid medical leave for the time necessary to recover completely, and ensured that all medications and follow-up consultations were covered by the company's health plan, a benefit that, he discovered with shame, wasn't being adequately offered to operational-level employees. Meanwhile, he faced the consequences of his secret mission. The press had transformed the story into a national phenomenon. "Billionaire CEO works as stock clerk in his own company," announced the headlines. Interviews were requested daily. The board of directors demanded explanations. Shareholders wanted assurances that the social experiment wouldn't affect profits. But Robert was determined. He convened an extraordinary meeting with all directors and presented his plan for a complete overhaul of the company. Many protested, citing prohibitive costs and unnecessary risks. Some even suggested that he was having some kind of nervous breakdown. "Maybe I am," he replied with a calm smile. "A breakdown of old structures, of old paradigms, and that's exactly what we need." The resistance was intense, but Robert had a trump card. As founder and majority shareholder, his word was still definitive, and he was willing to use that power to ensure that change happened. A week after Lisa's hospital discharge, Robert finally gathered the courage and went to visit her at home. He carried with him a proposal and much hope. The small apartment in the housing complex, which before seemed just an address on an employee record, now represented much more. It was the home of two people who had reawakened in him the purpose he had almost lost. When he knocked on the door, it was Amy who answered, with a radiant smile. "You came," she exclaimed, as if his visit was the most anticipated event of the year. "Lisa, the angel, is here." Lisa appeared right behind, looking healthier and more rested than Robert had ever seen her. "Amy, we've talked about this. He's not an angel. He's Mr. Lewis." "You can call me Robert," he insisted, for the umpteenth time. "And you can come in," replied Lisa, with a small smile. "We just made cornbread, my mother's recipe." That simple invitation meant much more than words could express. It was a sign that the doors, literally and figuratively, were opening for a new beginning. While they had coffee in the cozy small kitchen, with Amy proudly showing her new drawings, Robert felt a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. There in that simple apartment, with two sisters whom fate had brought back into his life, he found something that all the profits and business achievements had never provided, a genuine sense of purpose and connection. "I have a proposal for you," he finally said to Lisa, when Amy left to fetch more of her drawings from the bedroom. "But first I need to give you something." From the inner pocket of his jacket, he took out a yellowed envelope. Inside it, carefully preserved through all those years, was the original drawing, the blue angel with disproportionate wings, made by a 5-year-old Lisa. "I think this belongs to you now," he said, returning that family relic. "It's time for the angel to come home." Lisa held the drawing with trembling hands. The colors had faded a bit with time, but the image was still there, preserved like a time capsule. The blue angel that a 5-year-old girl had drawn for the man who had saved her family. "You kept this all this time?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "It was my talisman," confirmed Robert. "In difficult moments when I needed to make complicated decisions, I would look at this drawing and ask myself, what would the angel do? I think in recent years, I stopped consulting my talisman frequently enough." Amy came running back from the bedroom, carrying a shoebox decorated with colorful stickers. "Look, Lisa, it's like the drawing in Mum's box." "Mum's box?" asked Robert, curious. Lisa smiled, discreetly wiping away a tear. Mom kept the original angel drawing in a special box, along with other important mementos. After she was gone, I continued keeping things there. Notes from her, photos, small memories. Amy opened the box and, among various papers and small objects, there was an almost identical copy of the drawing Robert had just returned, probably made by the same 5-year-old Lisa on the same day. Mom used to say that as long as we had the angel, we would never be alone, explained the girl, with the profound simplicity that only children possess. And look, now we have 2 drawings and the real angel. Robert felt the weight of that responsibility. For these 2 sisters, he wasn't just a successful businessman or an occasional benefactor. He was an almost mythical figure, a symbol of hope that had permeated their lives through the stories told by their mother. About that proposal, he said, turning to Lisa, I'm implementing changes in the company, many changes, and I need people who understand the original vision of Lewis Market, the spirit with which it was created. Lisa observed him with cautious interest. And where do I fit into that? You mentioned you were a business administration student, right? I'd like to offer a complete scholarship for you to finish your degree. And while you study, you can work part-time at company headquarters in a program I'm creating. It will be called Lewis Market Connection, an initiative to ensure that we never again lose touch with what happens in the stores, with the real needs of employees. He paused, observing her reaction. You would be perfect for this, Lisa. You know the operation from the inside, you understand the real challenges, you have the trust of the employees, and most importantly, you have integrity. You wouldn't be afraid to tell me when I'm making mistakes. Lisa blinked a few times, processing the information. That seems like a big change. It is a big change, agreed Robert. For the company, for me, and it would be for you too. But I believe we have a unique opportunity here to transform Lewis Market into what it always should have been, not just a supermarket chain, but a community that takes care of its own. Amy, who had listened to everything with surprising attention for her age, intervened. And me? Where will I be while Lisa works and studies? Robert smiled. I thought about that too. We're creating educational spaces at regional headquarters for employees' children, not just daycares but environments for learning and growth, with art classes even. The girl's eyes lit up. Art classes, really? Really, he confirmed. And we already have our first resident artist. He pointed to the angel drawing, someone who knows very well how to draw angels. Lisa observed the interaction with a mix of emotions. Robert could see hope struggling against skepticism, the natural distrust formed by years of difficulties being challenged by the possibility of a different future. I need to think, she finally said. It's too big a decision to make impulsively. Of course, agreed Robert. Take all the time you need. The offer stands, whatever your decision. When he was about to say goodbye, Robert remembered something important. From his other pocket, he took out a small envelope. I almost forgot. This is for both of you. Inside the envelope were 3 tickets to Portland Adventure Park, including access to the VIP area and all attractions. For the weekend, he explained. I thought you deserve a day of fun after everything. Amy took the tickets with wide eyes. I've never been to an amusement park. 3 tickets, observed Lisa, raising an eyebrow. Robert shrugged with a shy smile. I thought maybe you'd like company, but I completely understand if you prefer to go alone. Amy didn't give her sister time to respond. Of course we want you to come. The angel has to come with us, right, Lisa? Lisa looked at her sister, then at Robert, and finally at the 2 angel drawings, separated by years, but identical in their message of hope. Yes, she agreed, with a small smile. I think the angel can come. 3 days later, Store 23 of Lewis Market received an unusual visit. It wasn't a surprise inspection or a routine audit. It was a meeting. A meeting with all employees from all sectors and shifts, personally convened by the CEO of the company. The buzz was intense in the break room, hastily expanded to accommodate everyone. Many still didn't believe the story of the undercover boss who had worked among them for weeks. Others, who had witnessed the dramatic revelation during Lisa's fainting, repeated the story with increasingly embellished details. At 3 p.m. sharp, Robert Lewis entered the break room. He wasn't wearing a suit and tie, as would be expected of a billionaire CEO. He wore a simple dress shirt and jeans, a middle ground between the executive from the penthouse and the anonymous stock clerk. By his side, to everyone's surprise, was Lisa, no longer in the cashier uniform, but in formal clothes that gave her a professional presence, without hiding her origin or her story. "Good afternoon, everyone," began Robert, looking into the eyes of each employee he could reach with his gaze. "Many of you already know me as the new guy from the stockroom. Others know me only as the name behind the company logo. Today I want to introduce myself as I really am, someone who lost his way, but who had the incredible luck to rediscover his purpose." For almost an hour, Robert talked about his experience over the last few weeks. He told about the anonymous letter that had motivated him, about the painful discoveries he had made, about the working conditions he had witnessed. He spoke about inadequate salaries, insufficient benefits, excessive pressures, and the lack of humanity that permeated the operation. "When I founded this company," he continued, "it was with a clear purpose, to create a business that served people, not just profited from them. My mother Margaret taught me that commerce is, above all, about relationships. It's about trust, mutual respect, and about creating real value in people's lives." He paused, looking around at the attentive faces. "At some point along the way, I forgot these lessons. I let spreadsheets, growth targets, and market expectations obscure the original purpose. But thanks to you, and especially thanks to two very special people whom fate placed in my path again, I had the chance to wake up before it was too late." Robert then invited Lisa to join him in the center of the break room. "This is Lisa Almeida. Many of you know her as a co-worker. I first met her 16 years ago when I was just a young recent graduate, driving down an Ohio highway on a rainy night. She will be the leader of the new Lewis Market Connection program, an initiative that will ensure that every employee's voice is heard, that decisions are made with humanity, and that we never again lose sight of what really matters." Then, in a simple but significant ceremony, Robert announced a series of immediate changes. Salary increases for all operational employees, expansion of the health plan to include dependents, creation of educational spaces for employees' children, revision of the overtime policy, implementation of a profit-sharing program for all levels, and the creation of an educational fund to support those who wish to continue studying. "I found her and her mother after an accident, and that encounter changed my life forever." The employees listened in respectful silence, some clearly moved by the story. "Today, Lisa represents something fundamental for the future of our company. These are just the first measures," he explained. "The real transformation will come with time, with the engagement of each of you, because Lewis Market is not me. It's not a building or a logo or a chain of stores. Lewis Market is each person who dedicates their time, effort, and talent to make this company work every day." When he finished speaking, something unexpected happened. Tony, the gray-haired security guard who had been an accomplice in the gifts for Amy, stood up. "Mr. Lewis," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "I've been an employee of this company for almost 12 years. I've seen a lot in that time. Good things and bad things. But today I feel like we're going back to our roots, to the time when Margaret still visited the stores, reminding everyone that people aren't numbers." A murmur of agreement ran through the break room. The older employees nodded, remembering the time when Robert's mother, already elderly but tireless, personally visited each unit, knowing employees by name. "That's why," continued Tony, "on behalf of all of us, I want to say, welcome back, Mr. Lewis. You've been away for too long." Those simple and sincere words deeply affected Robert. It was true. He had been away. Not geographically, but in spirit, in purpose, in human connection. "Thank you," he replied, his voice choked. "It's good to be back." In the weeks that followed, the transformation of Lewis Market became the talk of the American business world. Market analysts predicted everything from financial collapse to a revolution in the retail sector. Competitors observed with skepticism. Shareholders expressed concern about the immediate costs of the changes. But for Robert, the opinion that really mattered was that of the employees, and the first signs were promising: reduction in absenteeism, visible improvement in customer service, a lighter and more productive work environment. It was as if the entire company was awakening from a long period of lethargy. The program led by Lisa began with a simple suggestion system: but quickly evolved into working groups dedicated to specific improvements in each area. Her experience as a cashier, combined with her resumed studies in business administration, provided a unique perspective, the perfect bridge between the reality of the store floor and the strategic possibilities of management. Amy, in turn, had become a kind of unofficial mascot of the regional headquarters in Portland. Attending daily the educational space created for employees' children, the girl flourished. Her drawings of the Blue Angel gained new versions, and one of them, particularly expressive, was enlarged and framed, occupying a place of prominence in the company's reception. On a particularly pleasant Sunday afternoon, 3 months after the beginning of the changes, Robert, Lisa, and Amy walked through Forest Park. It had become a weekly ritual, a few hours of tranquility, away from the pressures of work and studies, just enjoying each other's company. "I'm going ahead to see the ducks," announced Amy, running toward the lake. "Don't go too close to the water," Lisa recommended, watching her sister move away. Robert smiled, noting how Lisa had changed in the last few months. She still maintained the strength and determination that characterized her, but there was a new lightness in her gestures, in her gaze. The deep, dark circles had disappeared, replaced by a brightness of someone who finally can glimpse a future beyond daily survival. "I never imagined we would be here," she commented, as they sat on a bench overlooking the lake. "If someone had told me 6 months ago that I would be walking in the park with the CEO of the company where I worked as a cashier, I would have thought it completely absurd." "Life has an interesting way of surprising us," replied Robert. "6 months ago, I wouldn't have imagined being here either. I was stuck in endless meetings, discussing numbers and strategies that seemed important at the time, but that now I realize were just empty." Lisa observed him with that perceptive look that seemed to see beyond words. "You still feel guilty, don't you, for having let the company lose its way?" Robert nodded, amazed at her insight. "I think so. Sometimes I wonder how long I would have continued in that direction if I hadn't received that letter, if I hadn't found you and Amy again." "You know what my mother used to say?" asked Lisa. "That there's no use looking back with regret. What's past is past. What matters is what we do from the moment we realize our mistakes. Your mother seems to have been a very wise woman." "She was," confirmed Lisa, with a nostalgic smile. "I think she would be happy to see how things are now, how her highway angel finally came back." Robert felt a comforting warmth in his chest. It wasn't just the company that was transforming, he himself was changing, rediscovering parts of himself that had been suffocated by years of ambition and detachment. Amy came running back, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "There's a man doing portraits near the bandstand. Can we get one done, please?" Lisa and Robert exchanged an amused look. "Why not?" she agreed. As they walked toward the bandstand, Robert observed the two sisters side by side. They were his family now in a way that no official document could define, not by blood ties, but by something perhaps even stronger. A connection that transcended time and circumstances, intertwining their destinies in ways none of them could have predicted. The portrait artist was a white-haired gentleman with skillful hands. In less than 20 minutes, he created a charcoal portrait of the three of them. When he showed the result, Amy clapped with joy. "Look, he drew you with wings," she exclaimed, pointing to Robert's silhouette. The artist smiled, confused. "I didn't draw wings, little one, just shadows." But Amy shook her head with conviction. "They are wings, just invisible ones. The best wings are like that. We can't see them, but we know they're there." Lisa and Robert exchanged an emotional look. The child's perception once again transcended visible reality, capturing a deeper truth. Perhaps the wings were exactly that. Not physical appendages, but the capacity to elevate others, to provide support, protection, and the possibility of higher flights. At the end of that afternoon, as the sun began to set over the park, Robert contemplated the path they had traveled, from the dark road in Ohio to that moment of peace in Portland, from the wings drawn by a 5-year-old child to the real transformation of an entire company. The highway angel had returned, not as a mythical figure or a distant savior, but as an imperfect man, learning every day to be better, to honor the drawing he had received so many years ago. And as he watched Amy run ahead, laughing, and felt the serene presence of Lisa beside him, Robert Louis finally understood the true meaning of those invisible wings. It wasn't about saving others, but about allowing everyone, including himself, to fly with their own wings. "Do you think we'll ever tell Amy that angels don't really exist?" asked Lisa, watching her sister play. Robert smiled, thinking about everything they had lived through, all the improbable coincidences that had brought them together again. "Who says they don't?" he simply replied. And in that golden sunset, with the childish drawing of an angel cherished in all their memories, the possibility seemed to really exist. That some encounters are not just coincidences, that some stories don't end when we think they have, and that sometimes, very rarely, angels really do appear when we need them most, even if their wings are invisible to most people.